Judges, I didn't know what I didn't know, Carolyn Blossel.
Is this our stage right here? I didn't get that.
You just get it back. I just pulled forward because I was going to use it.
Okay. As long as you can see your light.
It's there on your left.
It was 4 years ago, almost to the day, I was at a meeting. It was kind of one of those meetings you really didn't want to go to, but someone that you were with really wanted you to be there. I was so sure that there was nothing for me to learn that night that the notebook I brought with me, pocket-sized. I was confident that I had nothing to learn by going to this meeting. I sat there, naturally with my arms folded, somewhere towards the back of the room because me that night. And then the speaker said something. He said this. Well, actually, he said two things. The first thing he said was, what we don't know could be some of the most important information in our lives. Then he said, we are where we are because that's what we know. I took a quick inventory of my life. I knew that where I was in my life at that point in time, I was not happy with it. I was working 2 full-time jobs, 1 part-time job. I was gone from my house 50 to 60 hours a week, working as a seamstress and working a part-time job at Ancestry.com. I had 7 children living at home, including an exchange student from Denmark. Can you relate to a situation that if you work harder, surely things are going to work out and be better? Surely there's going to be a brighter future ahead if we just work harder. There I was at that meeting that night, thinking about how hard I was working and realizing that it really wasn't getting any better. My life was not really the financial life I had thought I would be having at that stage in my life. And my family was suffering because of it in ways I was yet to find out. There were things I didn't know. Now, I come from a very educated family, and in fact, I was determined when I was younger that one of the most important things to me was going to be a college education. And I did everything I could to finish that college education at the earliest time I could in my life. In fact, it took me 6.5 years to get that college education because I transferred schools partway through from Iowa State to Brigham Young University. And Brigham Young didn't even have the degree that I was studying at the time, which was advertising and design. And they said, well, you're going to have to start right over again at year number 1, when I'd already completed 3.5 years of college studies. Did I really want to spend 7.5 years just for an undergraduate degree? I knew that I wanted to be a finisher and I wanted my education, and I cobbled together whatever was possible and got that education, graduated, and as I like to tell people, I was jobless and penniless. I learned how to do graphic design without a computer. Now, when I graduated, the computer had been invented. Was my skill set even worth using at that point in time? And then kids came along, life happened, and there I was at that meeting that night, realizing that my life was a product of what I knew, and I was not satisfied. I wanted to be in a different financial situation because I had watched my children. It had gotten to the point I could grind the wheat, I could grind the corn, I could grind the rye, I could grind the barley, I could use the powdered milk, I could use the powdered eggs, I could use the powdered butter. I could make whatever you wanted, except when it came to maybe butchering a cow or collecting eggs from the chicken. I knew how to make anything in the kitchen. I had mastered the art of spending no money possible. I had tried to reduce our expenses to the very minimum. I sewed my kids' clothes as much as I could. But I was not happy with the outcome. It wasn't getting better. I couldn't figure out how to be more frugal than I already was. And that night, I determined at that meeting that even though my notebook was small, what I took away from that meeting was it was up to me to determine how my future was going to look. And what I didn't know was money. I had spent all my life figuring out everything else except how money works. How is it that other people are able to go on wonderful trips? Ours were car trips to Iowa because I could, one, keep my kids confined, and two, it really didn't cost that much money besides gas and the treats we had in the car. I wanted a different outcome. I had watched my kids when I bought a box of sugared cereal get the Ziploc bags so that they could store their own private stash because they never had it at home. I had to do away with cereal because it took too much milk, and they went through it so fast. And I'd watch them with that Ziploc bag and take their private stash and hide it somewhere in the kitchen so that they were sure that they would get some when the time came. I wanted a different outcome. I have spent the last 5 years studying everything about money. Where to invest? How does life insurance work? Where do people put their money to make it grow the most? And to this day, it is so much different. We just went on a vacation, took all of our children except the oldest, who just broken his leg, and went to Europe. We spent Christmas in Salzburg in a palace. We went skiing in Zermatt on the Matterhorn. Whatever our kids wanted, we said yes. And at the end of that trip, we asked them, what was different about this experience that we just had shared together as a family? And they said, we didn't have to worry if there was enough money to pay for our experience. We are where we are because that's what we know. And if we don't like where we are financially, there is a world out there waiting for you to discover it. And it will make all the difference in where you are.
All right.